The year 3429, in the far reaches of the Andromeda Arm, orbiting a dying binary star, hung the crystalline spires of the Hall of Orions, forged from refractive diamond lattice crystals harvested from the heart of neutron stars. Its towers glimmered with 1,000 shafts of prismatic light. Within these hallowed walls, the 77-member species of the Galactic Council convened, diplomats, scientists, and strategists who believed themselves the arbiters of interstellar order. At the hall's epicenter, on a raised dais of woven starlight and graviton matrices, stood President Ventress. She was a being of pure fractal illumination, her form shifting through ribbons of violet, blue, and silver light. Each ripple of her countenance shimmered like the surface of a disturbed pond. Around her, the council's seats, each unique to its occupant's physiology and culture, formed a perfect circle. The chamber fell silent as Ambassador Keller of the Oravi rose. His 6-jointed limbs moved with stately grace. His multifaceted eyes, each like a living gem, focused on the sole human representative. He cleared a throat that resonated like tempered crystal. "Esteemed council members," Kell began, voice amplified through psychically tuned harmonics, "we face a grave challenge. The humans have refused to submit to our collective governance regarding their newly charted warp routes. These routes cut through contested space zones of strategic importance. Too many council species, if left unchecked, humanity's unregulated access could destabilize trade networks, provoke territorial conflicts, and undermine decades of painstaking diplomacy." Soft murmurs rippled through the chamber. To some, the human empire was a tiny, nascent power, a blue-green speck barely out of its own neighborhood. Yet their explosive colonization in recent decades had raised alarm. Consul Mara Tesh stood alone on the opposite side. The human envoy's chair, a sleek, transparent arc of smart glass, hugged her form. Her dark hair was woven into an earth-born braid. Her uniform a simple cut of deep indigo and steel. Across her chest gleamed the emblem of United Earth Government. Two interlocking rings encircled by olive branches. She held her holo scroll before her, its glyph-woven script flickering in the ambient light. When she spoke, her voice was precise, measured, but resolute. The warp routes in question lay entirely within sectors charted, mapped, and regulated by the Terran Navigation Authority. "We have conducted extensive subspace geodesy, submitted cartographic data to the Yaljan Arbitration Bureau, and paid all requisite transit levies to the Verkai Merchant Guild. Humanity's right to sovereign passage is beyond dispute." A sharp click echoed as Ambassador Threz of the Braxian Union leaned forward. His exoskeletal mandibles clicked in what humans recognized as amusement. "Sovereign passage. You speak of sovereignty as if humanity holds dominion over the void itself. You are a fledgling power. You have no right to carve new lanes through intergalactic highways without council consent." Mara's eyes narrowed. "The Galactic Council is not a monolithic authority. Your charter explicitly acknowledges the sovereignty of member worlds over their adjacent warp corridors so long as they adhere to navigation safety protocols. We have done so." From the ranks of the crystalline Archean, where delegates sat enshrined in stasis fields, one facet whitened as they chimed in telepathic resonance. "Your arrogance endangers us all. We have treaties with the Syrax Cloud Weavers and the Bruntavian, clans that depend on stable corridors. You propose we bow to your unilateral maps?" A tremor of excitement buzzed through the chamber. Across the circle, the Syrax ambassadors' form coalesced into a roiling mass of violet mist. Their voice was distant yet thunderous. "Let us speak plainly. If humans will not cooperate, then humans must be contained." Mara's jaw clenched. She raised a hand, her palm emitting a cascade of holographic schematics. "Containment is unnecessary. We propose a joint navigation committee, representatives from every concerned species, to oversee expansion and resolve disputes. Diplomacy, not force, preserves peace." At that moment, President Ventress raised both fractal-lit arms, and a hush fell once more. The crystal columns along the chamber walls hummed, veins of stored energy rippling through their structure. "We have heard your words, Consul Tesh, and we recognize humanity's record of cooperation in past council-sanctioned missions. Your assistance in the Grell Continuum's quarantine your mediation in the Minrak civil uprising. Yet we cannot ignore the potential for conflict these new warp routes represent." She paused, allowing the weight of her next declaration to settle. "Therefore, by unanimous decree of the Council, we hereby issue an ultimatum. Within 30 galactic standard days, the Terran Navigation Authority must surrender jurisdiction over all warp lanes, extending beyond the Sol System's route boundary. These routes will be placed under direct Council control, with navigation rights granted at our discretion. Failure to comply will result in full embargo. Warp disruption fields will isolate human worlds. All trade ceased, and the United Earth government will be stripped of its council seat." A low roar rose as delegates reacted, some in applause, some in outrage. The Braxians thudded their armored fists in approval. The Siracs enveloped themselves in ecstatic cloud currents of color. The Archean facets glowed icy blue in anticipation of conquest. Mara Tesh remained still, eyes fierce. When the clamor died, she spoke in a tone sharper than any sword. "We refuse." She let the word hang, each syllable measured in the language of peace yet sharpened by unyielding conviction. "Humanity will not relinquish its sovereignty. We will not bow to threats. If you wish to sever ties, cut the council cords now." A hush, thicker than before, stretched across the hall. President Ventress's fractal form wavered, narrowing and dimming as if struck. "Your refusal is regrettable." In a motion so swift it was almost imperceptible, Ventress invoked the Council's graviton gavel. The air trembled, and all screens flickered to life with identical commands. "Execute embargo protocol." The crystalline columns surged with latent energy, and the hall's starlit windows rippled as subspace fields fractured around the slow pulse of disruptor resonators. Mara felt the temperature drop. A subtle vibration rippled through her bones as the Council weapon systems engaged. She stood her ground. "Then you leave us no choice." At her words, the finality of war settled in. The ultimatum was no longer diplomatic. It was a statement of intent. Around her, holoscrolls dimmed, and the graviton doors sealed with a resonant clang. Outside the Hall of Orions, the silence before the storm pressed in. 30 days remained. Earth's fate and that of every human colony stretching toward. The stars hung precariously on a razor's edge. The moment of defiance had been declared, and the galaxy would never be the same. The solar disk of Earth rose behind the shattered spire of Geneva Nova's Hall of Nations, its amber light casting fractured shadows across the skeletal remains of docking platforms. Once a gleaming nexus of interstellar diplomacy, the plaza now echoed only the distant wail of thrusters and the hollow groan of metal under stress. Humanity's homeworld had slept beneath the Council's blanket of false security. Now it shuddered under the first true assault, the fall of Terra deep within the United Earth Government's command center. Consoles hummed and holoscreens flickered. The Council's disruptor fields, launched from stealth cruisers lurking in geosynchronous orbit, rippled through spacetime, severing warp gates like throat slashes through silk. The gates sputtered and died. Entire fleets found themselves stranded between dimensions. Panic spread faster than any virus on the bunker's highest observation deck. Consul Mara Tesh stared at the cascading redouts. The Terran blue of Earth's surface was broken by crimson blots impact sites where kinetic bombardments had torn great scars. "Shields are down to 20% in Sector 3, reported Lieutenant Harrow, voice tight with urgency. "We're losing the Pacific." Command station. Mara closed her eyes, gathering the calm she would need. "Redirect all available power to the ion field generators," she ordered. "Evacuate non-essential personnel to secondary shelters, and contact Captain Kwan on the Resolute. He needs to coordinate civilian extraction from Luna and Mars around her." Commanders dashed between console clusters. Data scribes recorded every glitch, every tactical maneuver. Outside, the groaning of reinforced doors signaled the approach of the Council's orbital strike craft, glowing like predatory stars. Refugees in the Rubli crossed the beleaguered globe. Millions fled, families clutching salvaged belongings, scientists and engineers carrying data cache cylinders, children lulled by the hum of gravity generators in battered transports. In the shattered streets of New Alexandria, a booming Martian colony turned refuge. Makeshift camps sprouted like fungal blooms. Tarpaulin shelters bore the logos of 8 agencies. Volunteers in patched uniforms doled out ration pods and medical patches. One such camp lay under the broken arches of the old network spire. Dr. Elena Vasa, leading xenobiologist, whose work on cross-species immunogens had once won her the council's commendation, now knelt beside a frail child. Her gloved hands hovered over a portable bioscanner. Breath shallow, she whispered, scanning for trace gases in the lungs. I've seen this reaction before. Nanoplasmic residue from disruptor backwash, she grimaced, issuing a microdose from a small injector. The child's eyelids fluttered, the convulsions eased. Nearby, a battered transport pod landed with a hiss. The hatch slid open to reveal Captain Jiro Kwan, face streaked with lunar dust. Behind him poured dozens of ex-engineers from the Resolute, each carrying equipment bays bristling with salvageable warp drive components. They moved swiftly to set up a temporary repair station beneath a collapsed overpass. Elena rose as Jiro approached. They'll breach Luna's defenses by tomorrow, he said, voice low. Mars is already under lockdown. He gestured to the crew, who were powering up a jury-rigged grav cannon. We need to buy time, give the Ark Initiative a chance to launch. Mara arrived, stepping from a ground car streaming plasteel and ceramite. She nodded to Elena, then turned to Jiro. Our window is closing, she said softly. Do what you must. We'll hold here as long as we can. Then we fall back to the underground complex. She produced a data pad. Here are the coordinates to Europa's Ark facility. I'll oversee the initial launch. You handle their defense. The haunting of Homie's darkness fell. The city lights flickered first in neighborhoods still online, then in the shattered downtown, where entire districts lay buried beneath rubble. The sky overhead was alive with council frigates, their searchlights probing every hidden enclave. Beneath them, small human fighters, repurposed mining craft armed with electromagnetic pulse cannons, swarmed like angry hornets in the beleaguered streets. Scavengers and rogue militias lurked in ruined arcades, looting supply caches. Mara's security contingent clashed with them in narrow alleyways, the sharp report of concealed pulse pistols echoing against broken walls. Each encounter added to the weight on Mara's shoulders. These were her people, untrained civilians, now reaping the horrors of her defiance. Yet amid the chaos, sparks of unity glowed. Former corporate rivals shared rations. Martian terraforming specialists directed civilians to safety. Through labyrinthine irrigation tunnels, an old librarian in the city's Grand Archive used centuries-old floor plans to guide lost children out of collapsed sublevels. Humanity's resilience shone brightest in these quiet acts of compassion. A glimmer beyond the Starson orbit, aboard the Resolute, Jiro Kwan watched the chaos unfold through holofeed from Earth's surface. His crew worked feverishly, calibrating the grav cannons and reinforcing the hull plating. Transmission from Mara, Captain, said Ensign Lee, adjusting a frequency. Mara's visage appeared, backlit by the glow of emergency lighting. Jiro, we're initiating Operation Exodus at 0300 ship time. I want the first wave of Arks away by 0400. Prepare your fastest courier ships to escort them through the anomaly fields. She swallowed. We can't save everyone, but we can save the seed. He clenched his jaw. Understood. We'll cover their jump to the outer rim. Expect losses, but none will die unloved. As the transmission ended, Jiro turned to his crew. This is what they trained us for, he said, voice resolute. When every star seems out of reach, we become the beacon. We will carry hope where weapons fail. Below them, Earth's atmosphere trembled under the final barrage. Yet even as the last active shield faltered, somewhere beneath the shifting rubble, deep into the ice-choked hollows of Europa, the dormant heart of humanity's future stirred. The Arks awaited their moment, silent guardians of an exiled race. And thus, as the Council's wrath bathed the blue planet in ruinous light, humankind's spirit illuminated the darkness beyond, forging the first notes of a defiant new overture. The bitter cold of Europa's subsurface caverns pressed in on Maratesh as she descended the steel ladder from the surface elevator. Dim, bioluminescent lichen clung to the ice walls, their ghostly glow casting trembling shadows across the corridor. At the end of the passage lay the heart of Project Ark, a cavernous hangar shaped from carved ice, and reinforced with composite struts, where 8 massive sleeper arcs lay dormant, each one a miracle of human engineering and hope. The sleeper ships, each arc measured nearly a kilometer in length, its hull plated with graphene-infused titanium alloy and etched with anti-grav nodes. Along their sides, tubular cryofunnels fed into vast biodomes where hundreds of thousands of human-alien hybrid embryos and their supporting ecosystems awaited the moment of awakening. Beneath the domes, banks of quantum data drives stored the digitized consciousness of essential specialist pilots, agricultural scientists, xenobiologists, terraforming engineers preserved in entangled state matrices, ready to be downloaded and reborn when a colony world stabilized. Overhead, maintenance drones hummed as they performed final system checks. One by one, their scanners swept the hulls, verifying structural integrity, recalibrating the inertial navigators, and topping off the nano-terraforming payload canisters. A chorus of soft electronic chirps marked each successful test. Mara's escort, a unit of hardened engineers and security officers, fell into an awestruck silence as she strode past. "Never thought I'd see anything like this," whispered Lieutenant Harrow, his breath forming frost in the frigid air. "A fleet in a cave." Mara placed a hand on the nearest hull. The metal was cold, but a faint warmth pulsed from within the heat exchangers, cycling in preparation for cryo deployment. "This is our covenant with the future," she murmured. "If Earth falls, these sleepers carry the seed of humanity to distant shores." Jiro's gambit at a raised command dais overlooking the hangar. Captain Jiro Kwan reviewed the launch manifest on a holoslate. 8 arcs, 8 target star systems, and only a dozen escort corvettes to shepherd them through the Perigo's warp. Gauntlets, each arc required a dedicated team of 3 courier ships, light, fast, and armed with adaptive cloaking drives. Jiro tapped a marker on one entry. Arc 3 Odyssey gives Proxima Centauri B lead courier. Icarus Runner escort. Shadow Falcon. Nightwind, we're cutting it close, Jiro said. The Council's patrols are densest along the inner corridor. To Proxima. The anomaly fields we've generated will help hide the jump signatures, but only if the escorts get them into warp before the disruptor nets lock on. He looked up to see Mara approach, her face illuminated by the holo feed. Bore traces of exhaustion, but burned with fierce determination. Status, 6 arcs ready. Jiro replied, to need final calibration on their nano canisters. We've got enough power from the geothermal converters to finish them by 0100 ship time. Escorts are prepped. Their transponder scramblers are functional. Mara nodded. Good. Begin vectoring the first wave, arcs 1, 2, and 3. The Icarus Runner squadron will shepherd them through the outer ice fissures. Once they clear the zone, we initiate the secondary pulse to collapse the cavern entrances behind them. Understood. Jiro tapped the sequence. Twin launch gates opened at the cavern's mouth, revealing the swirling void beyond. The first 3 arcs glided forward, their inertial fields modulating to slip between the rocky overhangs, the covert exoducive of them. Europa's fractured ice surface bore its own scars, heat vents gaping like wounds, steam plumes painting the sky. Against that backdrop, the courier ships sprinted into position. The Icarus Runner's hull reflected the bioluminescent glow even as its cloaking drive shimmered. Jiro watched through the command viewport as the triad drew near Arc 1, the luminescent outline flickering to ghostly translucence. Engage jump sequence, Mara ordered. In the hushed silence of the hangar, the first arc's engines thrummed a deep, resonant pulse as its inertial dampeners and subspace capacitors synchronized. Across 20 kilometers of void, a luminous tunnel bloomed around the hull, then collapsed in a blink. The Odyssey had vanished, its cargo of new life hurtling toward Proxima Centauri. One by one, the other two followed. When the last flared out, Mara turned back to Jiro. "Time to seal the gates," she said. He tapped a control. The launch bay's ice-carved doors began to slide shut, but before they could close entirely, alarms blared. Unidentified warp signature, the comms officer shouted. 3 incoming vessels fast, small profile, decloaking. Mara's heart sank. Council raiders. Damn it, they tracked the escorts. The defense of the arc across the hangar, Automated defense turrets rotated into position, their barrels glowing with charged plasma rounds. Jiro kicked open the doors, and the cavern was bathed in staccato bursts of electric fire. The raiders, sleek, black as void, etched with the emblem of the Syrax cloud weavers, danced through the muzzle flashes, weaving in to target the remaining Orcs. Hold them off, Jiro snarled. He vaulted into a grav lift and shot toward the nearest courier ship, a boarding harness in hand. I'll deal with their drives. If we can't launch them, we at least buy time. Mara took up a portable comm. All units, focus on their thrusters, disrupt their inertia fields, and they'll stall. She sprinted alongside the automated turrets, directing their fire toward the raiders' vulnerable engine nacelles. Explosions rocked the cavern. Ice shards rained down from the reinforced ceiling as the Syrax vessels retaliated with iron lances, searing through composite struts. The turrets kept firing single plasma rounds, punching through raider hulls, yet never quite bringing them down. Finally, Jiro's voice crackled over the comms. Strapped explosive charges on one cruiser. Engines offline in 3, 2, 1 detonating. A concussive wave slammed through the cavern as the raider burst into flame. The remaining defaulted, their cloaks flickering. Automated turrets and Milla's squad of engineers combined to force them into a trap at the cavern mouth, where a last barrage of plasma and grav trigger charges ripped them apart. Silence followed, broken only by distant groans of ice readjusting. The hangar doors finally sealed, and emergency lights bathed the corridor in a red glow. Mara exhaled. That should keep them off our backs for at least a few standard days. Jiro joined her in the dim light. 6 launched, 1 in emergency. Stand by, 1 disabled, cargo intact. The Council will know we struck back. Aftermath and resolving the hush that followed. The hum of geothermal vents filled the air, and the bioluminescent lichen pulsed in time with their hearts. Engineers rushed to repair the damaged consoles. Medics tended to wounded technicians. Each sleeper arc still cloaked in frost, and promise loomed silent, waiting for its moment. Mara placed a hand on the cold hull of Arc 7, the one set for Epsilon Eridani. We've gambled everything on this initiative, she said. If these vessels survive their jumps, future generations of humankind and our alien partners will thrive beyond the Council's reach. Jiro nodded, eyes on the dormant titans. Then we've done our part. Now it's up to the stars. As they turned to leave, the cavern's entrance trembled once more, a reminder that the Council's wrath would not be easily deterred. But in that underground sanctuary, amidst the hush of ice and steel, a new chapter of human destiny was already unfolding among the distant suns. A tremor rippled through the Hall of Orions, faint at first, then building into a resonance that rattled crystal pillars and sent fractal patterns of light dancing like nervous fireflies across the chamber's vast floor. President Van Tress hovered above the dais, her fractal form flickering between determination and dread. Round her, delegates of 77 species bolted from their seats, crystal spines rattling, carapaces clattering, misty forms flickering. In panic, on a 70-meter-wide viewing gallery of transparent starlight crystal, the Council's supercomputers projected live subspace readings, warp conduits tearing open, energy spikes in every quadrant, entire fleets vanishing in silent bursts of quantum disintegration. The holographic display bathed the chamber in cold, shifting colors. Ambassador Keller's multifaceted eyes widened as he deciphered the data streams. These anomalies, they're not natural, he stuttered. They mirror the nanotech signatures, the ones humanity's sleeper arcs carry. He frantically keyed auxiliary channels. Syrax cloud weavers, report. A tremor of violet thunder coalesced as the Syrax ambassador materialized. Their voiced projection crackled. Our patrol divisions report that entire patrol wings Alpha, Beta, Gamma have simply ceased to exist. No debris, no energy residue beyond the initial feedback. The disruptor waves you deployed have rebounded through Council stabilization fields, creating cascading warp storms. A cluster of Archean delegates whispered through telepathic resonance. Our crystalline barriers are shattering. The very architecture of the hall is destabilizing. At this rate, the entire structure will collapse within minutes. An angry chorus swelled across the chamber, but one voice rose above the tumult. calm and resolute. On a secure comm channel, Consul Mara Tesh's visage flickered into existence before Ventress herself. The president's eyes, normally unshakable, prisms of authority, trembled for the first time. Consul Tesh, Ventress's voice wavered. Why? Mara's face was gaunt, her uniform dust-streaked, but her eyes shone with a fierce conviction. When you seized our warp routes, you unleashed disruptor fields calibrated to Council specifications. You thought them precise, but human nanobots designed for terraforming interacted with subspace eddies in ways your engineers never anticipated. They've rewritten every warp corridor within 10 light-years. Your ships are trapped in feedback loops. Your stabilization matrices are failing. The chamber went silent as the full weight of her words registered. Ventress's fractal form pulsed and dimmed. You did this intentionally. Mara tilted her head. We didn't set out for planetary conquest. We sought survival. We seeded colonies with self-replicating nanotech to terraform distant worlds. The Council's disruptors forced that tech to reach far beyond its intended targets. Now she paused, voice softening. Now we share the consequences. Suddenly, a deafening crack split the air as a crystalline spire, one of the hall's main support pillars, fractured. Brilliant shards fell like prismatic rain. Syrax delegates recoiled. Braxian warriors' exoskeletons plated in chitin dove for cover. Even Ventress's fractal countenance flickered into nothingness as she grasped the days for support. Keller sprang forward. Evacuate, seal the comm channels, nullify the nanotech feedback. But it was too late. The hall's graviton locks disengaged as subspace distortions tore at its foundation. Entire panels popped free, drifting into the void outside. Speakers carried urgent crackles of alarm. The holographic displays fractured, leaving only static and jagged data shards dot above the chaos. Mara's image spoke once more. This is your moment of reckoning. You sought to contain humanity, but in doing so, you've endangered the entire galaxy. We offer one choice: stand down, open your corridors, and work with us to reverse these feedback loops or watch your civilization unravel. A hushed murmur rose at her words. The Syrax ambassador, voice strained, rasped, "You risk annihilation for all." Mara's eyes hardened. Risk is the currency of freedom. We refuse to bow. At that instant, the hall's grand atrium ceiling imploded inward as crystalline shards collided with fracturing supports. Ventress's fractal form shattered into millions of motes of light, scattering into the void. Ambassador Kel leered for the comm console, but a tremor sent him sprawling. He looked up, gaze meeting Mara's one final time. In his multifaceted eyes flickered awe and fear. With a deafening roar, the Hall of Orions collapsed in a blinding coronet of refracted light. The subspace storms swallowed its remains, dispersing crystals and data streams into the void beyond. Communication silence blanketed the system. Back on the bridge of the Resolute, Captain Jiro Kwan stared at the display, showing the event. They did it, he whispered. They broke the Council. Mara's voice crackled one last time through deep space comm. The galaxy is free. But now begins the true work, rebuilding a universe no longer bound by fear and domination. We stand at the threshold of a new era. Let it be one of cooperation, not coercion. As the Resolute and its ragged convoy slipped into the newly opened warp lane, Jiro pressed his hand to his heart. For humanity, and for every species eager for peace. And across the stars, where Council fleets once enforced order, silence reigned for the first time, truly free. The age of coercion had ended. The age of choice had begun.